What's going on? What's going on? We are here at the Maker Gym with something pretty special. This is an impromptu show that we're doing. We came by to hear a little bit about podcasting, but we just got right into it. You know what I mean? And that's what it's all about. We got a lot of people that's going to be starting off saying, yo, how do I create a podcast? How do I, create something? You just got to get going. You got to go through whatever it is, and then, just click that record button and then start, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and, let the gentlemen introduce yourselves. Go ahead.
All right. I'm Jerry Dugan, and I am the host of Beyond the Rut, a show that shares encouraging stories and practical tools to help people create a life they feel is worth living in their faith, family, and career.
Man, that was so good.
So in one breath, snapped out at the end.
I am Tony Rambos of the Living Numbers podcast, and I have amazing people come on and share their stories, and we use numbers to transition our topics. So you always have somebody interesting, you always hear something insightful, and it'll always be entertaining.
And I'm Brad Sharp. I'm the founder of Sierra Mind. It's a company I put together after a personal transformation over the last year with the idea of helping people overcome those fears and the negative stories and self-talk they tell themselves to really become the person they need to be to have the success they want to have. And my podcast will be called Make Your Mind when it launches in a few weeks.
Here we go. Make your mind. I like it.
All right. And I'm your man, Ken Nova Neogi, the host of Nova Versa Machine. We start off with the central understanding that it's us as people. We are all one. We're all together, and it's us versus machine. We got to understand and be aware of what's going on, how technology and the media is being used so often to kind of make people not understand one another. But in reality, we got a lot in common, and we're gonna share some understanding and share some strategies about how we can, stay successful and stay above right now.
Yeah.
All right, so we got to get into it. All right, this is a pretty funny story. We really just got together after hearing about, first of all, this meeting called was it the podcast movement?
North Texas Podcasters
Meetup, the North Texas Podcasters Meetup. And I heard about this literally today. It was already in my algorithm of just creating stuff, and been in that rhythm and decided to stop by. And, from there, we were able to hear a little bit about, the speaker spoke a little bit about
monetizing, getting started, kind of getting over some of those speed bumps of starting the podcast and keeping the podcast going.
Yeah. And speaking of speed bumps, we have run into quite a few speed bumps, in terms of getting this thing together right now. We met each other. We were just like, yo, let's do it. But in terms of setting up, we really had to embrace this understanding, this experience of growth, of understanding that there are technical things that you have to understand in order to be able to facilitate, the creation of your podcast. So I feel like a lot of times I'm a software engineer. So as a software engineer, we learn how to embrace the pain and have understanding of what it means to you. I feel like this experience right now was just definitely one of those things where you just embrace it and remember, that on the journey of creating something, you're going to have to experience some things that are it's like a test. Yeah, it's like, yo, do you want this? And just find out a way to just make stuff happen regardless.
I feel like for as much hype that the Rodecaster Pro 2 gets, we learned a lot tonight about, man, I got a big accent that came out. Did you hear that? We learned. Don't know where that came from, guys. I'm sorry. But anyway, we learned a lot of what the Rodecaster cannot do in terms of connecting to a USB drive, connecting to a computer, and recording on separate tracks and all those things. So that was enlightening in a way.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the questions we talked about even before this happened is, what's the role of technology in podcast development, and does it get in the way sometimes?
Yeah.
And sometimes things are just overly complicated.
It's clearly.
It does have pretty lights. We have to give them that for, the LED little whatever type of shit like that.
The record button should be red though. Always.
Hey, Dad, like off the top. You don't ever want to see a record button be blue. You never do.
Nope.
It's a
No color.
The universal color, man.
Like for me with these technical issues, and I look at everything through the lens of storytelling. And so the issue is now a part of the story. Like, I think it's the one thing that makes the story interesting, because it starts off as, it could have been, okay, I met these guys, we recorded, and, it was cool. But now the story takes a twist, because you go, well, we was working on this freaking Rodecaster Pro 2 XYB Master Plus, and it basically didn't work for what we needed it for. So the whole time, what we were doing was just talking, getting to know each other. And now we're building like this relationship before a record button is even hit.
Right.
And so I think that is one of the things that we'll all be able to remember, that we kind of bonded over this misfortune that we had. We're just trying to do something simple that we all have done many times over
in different ways.
Different aspects. Yeah. We've all hit that record button and put something on wax and, put it out there, or getting ready to, or that kind of thing. But this thing messing up created an experience for us to remember, outside of just coming to the meeting and it was cool, I met some people. Now we have this to kind of talk about. And whenever we see each other, I'm going to just call y'all, the Rodecaster 2 crew. And so y'all know what that means.
Hey, we got to give a shout out to Lil Miss Maya, man. One of the workers over here, she came out and tried for literally an hour more, or an hour and some.
She was working.
Yeah, we're trying to help us set up. But so anyways, like, I touched a little bit, and I know you guys touched a little bit on, what your shows are about. And I feel like, just to take a little bit of a step back, something that we could all just kind of talk about is like our why for, wanting to, share our voice. So, for me personally, I've
there we go.
I know if you don't post it, it never happened.
for real.
Make sure you tag me.
Podcast happens and there's no one there to record it. Video.
Is it
even a
podcast?
We can never claim it.
So for everybody listening, I just took a selfie video. I'll post it somewhere.
You said to my wife first.
Yeah. Olivia.
The family always loves seeing what you're doing, no matter what it is, you know what I mean? You gotta show them what's going on a little bit. But
so you're talking about our why.
Yeah, our why. So I want to start off with you, Brad.
Okay.
When you mentioned about what you're working on, it sounded kind of interesting. Tell us a little bit about, like, what you're working on, your why.
Well, so a little over a year ago, I was a little over 200 pounds and just decided that wasn't working anymore.
Yeah.
And started on this journey just to kind of lose some weight. And as a part of that process, I kind of discovered podcasts. I'd never listened to podcasts before, but I started going to the gym and started listening to podcasts while I was working out, and found some people that really connected with me along personal transformation. So the weight loss journey turned into a complete personal transformation from the inside out.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I created this company called Sierra Mind that I wanted to kind of give that gift to other people.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on now, is putting together some resources and content to help people take this same journey I have and maybe find some shortcuts so they don't have to do the pitfalls and things that
Yeah, exactly.
and also put things together in maybe a new and novel way. Because we had that discussion downstairs earlier that, somebody's already doing this podcast. Why would I do something like it? Well, people connect with the people, individuals.
Right.
So if somebody's doing the same type of thing, but they do it in a different way, they can connect with new people. So that was how this all got started. And so my why is, I was watching an episode of America's Got Talent one time. And they have the golden buzzer. You've seen that?
Yeah.
And when they hit the golden buzzer, that person's life changes forever instantly.
Yeah.
And that's when it hit me. My why is I want to be in a position to change the life of one person dramatically and then do it over and over.
Yes, sir.
And this is how I do it. I want to connect with people and help them with their transformational journey to become the people they need to be, to have the things they want to have, and then just keep repeating that.
Yeah. What I think about when I hear that story is that it's the power of, like, when you go through a journey and you really go through it, you have the understanding of what it takes to genuinely be able to transfer that information to people.
Right.
And if anybody was to tell me that this guy was 200 pounds,
I'm like, you must have been jacked.
I couldn't imagine it. I couldn't imagine you being 200 pounds. You were, pretty overweight. Were you?
Yeah.
Well, what habits?
How much do you weigh now?
160, 158.
Yeah, I would say about that. Yeah. So it's like you changed your diet in a significant way, and you started to exercise, and that stuff. When you transform yourself, you build a certain sense of like self.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's an identity.
Yeah.
So when people say, how did you do it? And how I did it is I became the identity of a person who was thin.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so there are people that can exercise and they can eat less and they don't lose weight because they don't believe that it's going to work, or they don't believe they're a thin person on the inside. I believed I was, and the weight actually just kind of fell off.
Yeah.
So I would walk a couple of miles per night, and then I would eat less, and it took 13 weeks for me to lose 40 pounds.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like I was really trying that hard because I was that person that was thin on the inside.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Okay. So that's perfect, because on my show, I want to share people's stories that have done things like that. So I think the motto of my show is everyone's interesting if you ask the right questions. So if I was to start asking Brad about, I'm just going to choose something random that I'm going to guess that you don't know much about, hood classic movies like Boys in the Hood, Friday, those kind of things.
Right.
Now, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong. You may not know much about those, so our conversation wouldn't be great. But if I was to ask you questions about weight loss, about nutrition, about changing the way that you think, now we can have a great conversation that pinpoints your expertise and allows you to share that journey with the person that is going through the same things that you've gone through.
Context is everything.
Context.
Yeah.
So that's what my show is all about, is I bring people on no matter what you've done or what you've gone through. If you've done a few things, because I always do my research first.
Yeah.
And it could be anybody. Like I've had this lady, she was an author. She wrote for the newspaper on the West Coast. A friend picked up the phone, was like, hey, can you help me train my editors in Yemen? Yeah, that's in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Okay. So she was like, well, I can't just leave my job. So she went, took a trip. It was cool. She eventually took the job, became editor-in-chief. Never been in management before. That's just the tip of the iceberg. She eventually marries this diplomat from England, an official in the government. Life changes. She's got security detail. Okay. She was kidnapped at one point by some terrorists. Like, I can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
Okay. She's written 2 books about all of this kind of stuff. I'm like, I need that person. Right. So your life don't have to be that crazy. All right. That's just one extreme example. But you have people who have changed careers, who've gone through a weight loss journey, who've written books, who started businesses. Those kind of stories are stories that people want to hear, because we all are trying to do something with our life that's bigger than ourselves. We may not start doing it early, but a lot of us eventually get to a point where we want to share these experiences and help the next generation. And so that's what I'm here to facilitate, and I have those people on.
Yeah. I got to admit, I was thinking that there was a missing opportunity with the living numbers things, because he was talking about 40, right? And I know you mess around with the numbers.
I do.
I know you mess around with the numbers. Let me hear a little bit more about that thing with the numbers.
Yeah.
That in with your show.
So if I had Brad on, who's clearly amazing, and he say like he was 200 plus pounds, right? The numbers don't have to be perfect, right? I've used several as a number. It's just a means to transition one topic to the next, right?
Yeah.
So I could use this time, right? So the meetup was 6:30 to 8:30. So that could be our number. So I would introduce it like this. All right, y'all. Thank you for listening. And I got to get into our first number. So our first number is 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Now, for some of y'all might be eating dinner, getting the kids ready for bed. For us, the guys that are in the room I'm doing the show with, we were at a podcasters meetup that was so fruitful, I decided to bring these guys on the show. And so I just used a number to introduce the topic. Okay. And so I might choose the number for Brad could be 40, or however many pounds you lost, I would use that number. The number for you, Ken, would be a different number just based on something in your life, and then same for Jerry. You know, for Jerry, I would use 9/11 because he has a story about,
Okay.
you know, he was in the military. So the number always kind of relates to that person's life or mine.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it just opens the door for the conversation
And why did you gravitate towards numbers?
because you
What
can
is it?
use numbers in anything. There's always numbers in everything that we do.
Yeah.
And I'm not like a numerologist or anything like that, but this is not popular in the podcasting world, but I didn't want to have a show that only talked about one thing. I wanted to be able to have anybody on
Mm-hmm.
and talk about whatever I wanted to talk about with them that was interesting, because I feel like that's the stuff that people want to hear. If I feel like it's interesting and it's Jerry's life, so he's going to be interested in it,
Yeah.
that's going to be a good conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Enthusiasm,
Yeah.
passion,
Yeah.
experience, stories,
Yeah.
right? You know, those are the things that really, really bring us together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a story is the most powerful thing in the world.
Yeah.
And that's something that, like, I think for all people, we know that from a subconscious level, but the people that are like successful in a number of different things, they know that from a conscious level.
Yeah.
Right. So like for me personally, for the past couple of years, I know I've personally been digging deeper into stuff like marketing and sales and just some of the business, some different business parts that I have not traditionally been in.
Right.
I really consider myself primarily somebody that likes to focus on product. I like to focus on the creation of stuff, but I've continuously been going deeper into stuff like marketing and sales, just understanding it. And you realize that stories are embedded in what these people do, and they use them in strategic ways to be able to influence people. So, you know, whenever you're able to hear people speak about something that they're passionate about, it's something that connects with us for some reason.
Well, the stories you tell yourself determine the quality of your life.
Very true as well.
Yeah. So for me, I told myself the story of someone who was thin.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. The story of a person that was that was thin, but also the story of somebody that was easily able to change from being overweight to thin. And a lot of people, like, they're so immersed in what's going on outside that they're not able to hear the story that they truly desire,
Too much noise.
and then from there walk in that. So I feel like you might be kind of uniquely qualified, or one of the people that's qualified to be able to talk about how, like, a strategy. What is it, like, some of the core strategies that you embedded in your life that allowed you to really hear where you wanted to go inside and achieve that within 13 weeks, which is a relatively short amount of time.
So there are a couple of things that come to mind that were really profound when I found these things. And one was the idea that what other people think of you is none of your business.
I like that.
Right. So we often walk around. I forgot who said this, and I wish I knew because it's a podcast and I should quote where I heard this, right? But, you know, we are not who we think we are, or I am not who I think I am, and I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am.
What?
Which means we walk around. But think about it. So we walk around,
Dream within a dream.
we walk around telling ourselves stories about how other people feel about us. And then when you talk to that person, they say, oh, I never thought that. But we believe it because we're telling ourselves that story. We create this reality. So once you realize that what other people think of you is none of your business, and you decide how you want to feel about things. And the second one is, there are three. And the second one was that your emotions are just feedback about the environment. They are not a call to action.
Yes.
Right? So meaning, if something happens that by habit, we've learned to react a certain way, to get upset, get mad at whatever, and we think that, well, why are you mad? Because that person did this. Well, no, you're mad because you decided to be mad. That was the reaction you chose to have. Once you realize that you can choose those reactions and that those emotions are just like, oh, I'm feeling this, but it doesn't mean that I have to react in a certain way.
Yeah.
So now you're in charge, you're in control of your emotions because you know that I get to decide how to react to everything.
Right.
And other people have no influence over how I feel about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third thing is a quote from Viktor Frankl. You guys may know Viktor Frankl. He was a Nazi concentration camp survivor. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And one of his famous quotes is, between stimulus and response, there is a space.
Yeah.
And in that space lies our power to choose our response. And in that power to choose lies the freedom to our growth and freedom. So once you start to put that space between stimulus and response, you become the master of your own domain. Right. So those three things are really the core foundation and strategies that I teach people, is to separate yourself from the stimulus and the response, and to feel worthy without justification. You don't need any external justification to feel worthy of things. And it's just about, and control your emotions, emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
So really those three things, are the core, and it builds out from there.
A friend of mine said, emotions are indicators, not navigators.
Exactly.
They tell you that something is happening, that you feel a certain way, something is going on, whether good, bad, or indifferent, but they don't tell you now what to do about those things. You don't act off those emotions. You take the information in, and then you digest, and like you said, between stimulus and response,
Right.
Now you got to create a decision. And I think it's Jerry's turn.
A guy named Dr. Kahneman, he got like a Nobel Prize in 2012 for economics, and it was him pointing out that part of the human condition is that whatever it is that we're hit with, our initial our initial, I guess, next step in the process is an emotional experience. There we go. And everybody goes through it. An emotional experience first, before we get to that rational, logical response.
Yeah.
And so there's something to be mindful of. Like, there's an entire marketing industry that exists that understands this through and through. And you look at the advertising that's out there, women's beauty industry, for example, the emotion they're tapping into is this fear that you're not pretty enough.
Yeah.
You're not young enough.
Not thin enough.
But with our product, you can be. And so it's like those emotions of inadequacy, and then this other emotion of, but if you have this, you can feel this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Beer commercials.
That's the first thing I thought of. Drink this beer, man, you gonna have a good time. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
The Coors train is gonna come through and cool off the hot way around. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You're the man if you got a Coors Light in your hand.
Yeah.
Like that first, I've heard it like that. It's like, this is nothing like the commercial. I was a kid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really makes me think about kind of one of the core concepts behind what Nova versus the machine mean. Like, of course you hear like the machine. What does that mean? And I feel like the machine, the man in some ways, but it's really like there's what we're all describing is that there is the understanding that us human beings, we're like we're emotional, but we're also logical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of cases, what we see is that the machine, I call it the machine. Andrew Tate calls it the Matrix. There's people that call it, but what it is that there is a manipulation of our emotions. So, and the direction that we see society going in is really a manipulation of emotions constantly, and people are confused. Like, it seems like if you look on YouTube, you just hear people confused, and everybody's kind of like a what's it called, like a prophet that knows what's going on, but if you hear what they're really saying, they're just super confused. And I feel like if there's one thing that can be said that can really be able to help people get a center, would be that it's us versus the machine. So if you don't have a philosophy that is aligned to understanding that men are not evil, women are not evil, white people are not evil, you know what I mean? People that are black are not evil. People that are, whatever it may be that is, that you might see as a barrier, or that you might think of, this is what's truth. If it doesn't have an understanding that we are all supposed to be one, and that we are supposed to genuinely be able to seek understanding from somebody instead of demonizing them as a person, then you're pretty much controlled by the machine. The machine has won at that point when you're looking at somebody like they're the enemy.
Yeah, I would consider the machine to be your ego, right? And I like this saying: the world is a reflection of how you feel about yourself.
Okay.
Right. So if you see anger in people, it's because you have anger in you. Because you see people who are very blissful, and nothing bothers them. They don't see people as anger because it doesn't exist in them. So when you think of the machine, I think of it's the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves.
What I
We
believe,
tell better stories, better outcomes.
I believe that the machine manipulates our egos. So I believe that within us human beings, we have our ego and we have our emotions. And what happens is that the machine manipulates these things in order for it to get likes, get clicks.
So these be like social constructs or like social norms that are the machine, or
Can you kind of clarify?
well,
So kind of like what he's saying, the I forgot the name of the documentary, but the algorithms that run social media,
Yeah.
that their goal is to keep you scrolling.
Right.
So that's exactly what I'm talking about. The world's a reflection of how you feel about yourself. You want to consume negative information. It feeds you negative information because you will scroll longer and longer.
Yeah.
Myself, I haven't interacted with negative information for so long. I never even seen anything political or negative or anything in any of my feeds because I just don't interact with it. The algorithm has learned that.
Yeah.
But if that's what you're seeing more often in your life, it's because that's what you need to justify your victimhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think that life is about understanding what reality is. Like reality, there's crazy stuff happening. There are negative things happening in real life, and there's like, no matter how good of a person you are, bad things are going to happen to you. No one's immune.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you believe or what you think, and how you, again, react to those things now is going to determine, what your life is going to look like. Like what Brad was saying, like I take reality for what it is. Like if things happen, like, okay, that thing happened. Like, that's true. It is reality. You can't fake and say, nope, I don't believe that. Like, no, somebody just lost their life. It doesn't matter what you believe. These are the facts. This just happened. So I think understanding that and then now trying to control how you then react to it, right? Are you going to be outraged? And if you are, now what are you going to do about it? Because remember, those emotions, indicators. So if you're sad, if you're happy about it, so now what are the next steps, right? Let's not run off of emotion. We get texts and stuff all the time. People say stuff that's crazy. I got a brother. My brother Troy, shout out. He's on my shot too. But like, he say stuff sometimes, and maybe it's not even directed towards me, but you're like, I would never say something like that. But now, okay, what am I going to do about it?
Right.
Now I have to evaluate the situation. Okay, I could go a couple of different ways. Am I going to maybe call my brother out on this? Okay, if I am, now how am I going to do it?
Right.
Am I going to let it slide? Am I not going to address it? Right. So I think
Yeah.
taking the world for what it is and then evaluating how you're going to respond by disconnecting, because a lot of time we have to disconnect from their social media. We got to disconnect from what our family and what our friends want to say. And like Brad was saying, like we have to look internally. Like, how do I feel about this? What do I want to do about this?
Yeah. How do you want to describe yourself to the world in the midst of, whatever scenario you run into? You know what I mean? Somebody can say, you can't control what somebody else does.
Yeah.
But when you are able to think about how you are describing yourself, then you get an opportunity to take control and manipulate the situation to be whatever you want it to be. And I feel like that's one of the things that, a lot of people that are comedians, like that's one of the things that they realize, I remember when I watched I think it was Kevin Hart or Michael Blackson. They were talking about how, when they got into comedy because they ran into a bully, and then from there they realized that they had the ability to make this bully laugh, right?
Yeah.
So it
that was Kevin Hart. I think you're right.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, from there, it's this scenario where it could have gone into a bad story that's traumatizing forever. But from there, you realize, man, I got control over the scenario. I could make it into something completely different. And that's when you're creating that space in between your emotions and, you know, the way somebody might try to make you feel versus how you want to manipulate that that moment to turn it into whatever you want.